The great hall buzzed with anticipation as the sorting ceremony commenced. Candles floated above, their flames flickering against the enchanted ceiling, which mirrored the night sky outside. 11-year-old Harry Potter stood among the other first years, his heart pounding as Professor McGonagall called out names. He tugged nervously at his oversized robes, second-hand remnants of a life far removed from magic. "Potter, Harry," McGonagall announced, and the room fell silent. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Harry Potter, the boy who lived." Harry's stomach twisted as every eye turned to him. He walked toward the stool, his scar prickling uncomfortably under their stares. Sitting down, he barely noticed McGonagall placing the sorting hat on his head before it spoke. "Ah, a fascinating mind," the hat mused. "Plenty of courage, I see. But there's ambition too, a hunger to prove yourself, and cunning. Yes, you'll do well in Slytherin." Not Slytherin, Harry thought desperately. Anything but Slytherin. "Oh, but why not?" the hat asked. "Slytherin can help you achieve greatness. Are you afraid of what others might think?" Harry hesitated. The hat's words cut deeper than he cared to admit. All his life he had been labelled as an orphan, a freak, and now a legend. Maybe Slytherin wasn't so bad. Maybe it would give him a chance to define himself on his own terms. "Slytherin," the hat declared. The Slytherin table erupted into cheers, though a few students exchanged surprised glances. Harry's heart sank as he walked toward them, their green and silver ties glinting in the candlelight. He caught sight of Ron Weasley, who looked utterly horrified, and Hermione Granger, whose expression teetered between confusion and disappointment. Draco Malfoy smirked as Harry sat down beside him. "I told you we'd be great friends, Potter." Harry forced a smile. "Yeah?" "Sure." Life in Slytherin House was not what Harry had expected. The common room, nestled deep in the dungeons, was cold and dimly lit, with green lamps casting eerie reflections on the stone walls. But it wasn't the environment that unnerved him, it was the people. Draco Malfoy, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle, quickly asserted himself as Harry's self-appointed guide. "Stick with me, Potter, and you'll be fine," Draco said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Harry wasn't so sure. The Slytherins valued blood purity and ambition above all else. While they welcomed Harry for his fame, he couldn't shake the feeling that many of them were testing him, waiting to see where his loyalties truly lay. Then there was Professor Snape. During potions class, Snape's favoritism towards Slytherins was unmistakable, but his cold, probing gaze lingered on Harry in a way that made him feel exposed, as though Snape could see right through him. "Tell me, Potter," Snape sneered during their first lesson, "what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry fumbled for an answer, but Snape's expression was less disappointed and more calculating. It was as if the professor was trying to figure out whether Harry was truly worthy of Slytherin House. As the weeks passed, Harry began to find his footing. He excelled at defense against the dark arts, much to the irritation of Draco, who seemed to expect Harry's deference. Meanwhile, Hermione, now one of the brightest stars of Gryffindor, maintained a cautious distance, though she occasionally offered Harry a polite nod in the library. Ron, on the other hand, avoided him entirely. Their brief interactions were frosty, filled with muttered insults and accusatory glares. Harry tried not to let it bother him, but deep down he missed the easy camaraderie he'd felt on the train. One evening, Draco convinced Harry to join him on a little adventure. They snuck past Filch and Mrs. Norris, eventually stumbling upon a door on the 3rd floor. "It's forbidden," Draco said, grinning. "But we're Slytherins. Rules don't apply to us." Harry hesitated but followed. Inside, they found a massive 3-headed dog guarding a trap door. Draco froze, but Harry stared at the creature, his heart pounding with something other than fear. It was a challenge, a secret, and Harry wanted to know more. That night, Harry lay awake, the image of the trapdoor burning in his mind. What was it hiding? He couldn't shake the feeling that this mystery might be his way of proving himself, not just to Slytherin, but to the entire school. As Halloween approached, the atmosphere in Hogwarts grew tense. Rumours swirled about the 3rd-floor corridor, and Harry's curiosity deepened. He found himself drawn to the darkness of the Slytherin common room, where the whispers of his housemates often turned to power and ambition. One night, as he stared into the emerald flames of the common room fireplace, he heard a voice. It was faint, almost a whisper, but unmistakable. "Harry!" He glanced around. The room was empty. The voice came again, slithering through his thoughts like a serpent. "Find me." Harry's scar prickled, and a shiver ran down his spine. He didn't know where the voice was coming from, but one thing was clear. It knew him, and it wanted him to listen. Harry's midnight wanderings began to take on a life of their own. Night after night, the whispers guided him through darkened halls and hidden corridors. The castle, alive with secrets, seemed to shift and breathe as Harry followed the voice. He found himself in places he hadn't known existed, secret passageways and forgotten classrooms, all leading him closer to something he couldn't quite name. The thrill of discovery coursed through him, mingling with an undercurrent of dread he couldn't shake. The whispers had led Harry to the third floor again. He stood in front of the door, hiding the three-headed dog, heart pounding as he debated whether he could outwit the beast on his own. But tonight, the whispers were louder than ever, more insistent, as though something behind the trapdoor demanded his presence. With a deep breath, he reached for his wand, muttering, "Alohomora." The lock clicked open, and the dog's growls filled the corridor, its head snapping awake. This time, Harry had come prepared, tossing another piece of stolen steak toward the monstrous creature. It lunged, 3 sets of jaws competing over the meat, and Harry slipped through the trapdoor with barely a glance back. He fell into the devil's snare again, the tendrils coiling around him with alarming speed. Harry forced himself to remember Professor Sprout's lesson. Stay calm, don't struggle. The plant's grip loosened, and he slipped free, landing in a heap on the cold stone floor below. Dusting himself off, he moved forward, his wand raised to illuminate the dark passage ahead. The first challenge awaited him, the room of flying keys. The sight was mesmerizing, hundreds of glittering wings reflecting his wand's light like shards of glass. Unlike the first time, Harry had no Hermione or Ron to strategize with. He scanned the room, quickly spotting the old broomstick propped in a corner. Mounting it, he shot into the air, weaving through the chaos as the keys darted toward him in sharp metallic swarms. He lunged at the largest, rustiest key, gripping it tightly as it fought against his grasp. With a triumphant shout, he descended and unlocked the door. Beyond the door was the life-sized chessboard. Harry hesitated. He remembered how Ron had taken charge of the game last time, sacrificing himself so they could move forward. But tonight there was no Ron. He stepped onto the board, feeling the heavy gaze of the enchanted pieces turn to him. As he called out moves, guiding the pieces with his wand, Harry realized that the game was more than a test of strategy. It was a test of leadership, of control. When he finally declared checkmate, the Black King toppled with a resounding crash and the path forward cleared. The next room was empty, but for a mirror standing in its center. Harry approached cautiously, his reflection shimmering in the glass. But as he drew closer, the image shifted. It wasn't his reflection anymore, it was a vision. In the mirror he saw himself standing tall, powerful, his green and silver Slytherin robes billowing like a king's cloak. In his hands was a glowing red stone, pulsating with energy. The voice, no longer a whisper but a clear, commanding presence, spoke in his mind. "You have done well to come this far, Harry Potter. Take it. Claim your destiny." Harry's scar burned fiercely as he reached out. His fingers brushed the mirror's surface, and the stone materialized in his palm, its warmth spreading through him like a fire. A surge of power coursed through his veins, exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "Who are you?" Harry demanded, his voice trembling. The room felt alive with unseen energy, the air thick and suffocating. "I am the one who understands you," the voice replied. "The one who sees your potential. They fear you, Harry. They will never accept you. But with me, you can become something greater than they can imagine." The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. Harry spun around, clutching the stone tightly. He recognized the shuffling gait of Professor Quirrell before the man even stepped into view. The defense against the dark arts professor looked as timid as ever, but his eyes gleamed with something darker, something dangerous. "Ah, Potter," Quirrell said, his voice low and snake-like. "I see you found it." Harry backed away, the stone burning hotter in his grip. "Stay back," he warned, his wand raised. Quirrell chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Harry's spine. "You don't understand, boy. That stone doesn't belong to you. Hand it over, and you'll be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams." The voice in Harry's mind returned, louder now. "Do not give it to him. He serves a master unworthy of its power." Harry hesitated, his heart racing. He could feel the stone's energy, its promise of strength and freedom. But he could also sense Quirrell's intent, the sinister shadow lurking behind his words. "No," Harry said firmly. "You can't have it." Quirrell's expression darkened, and he lunged forward. Harry reacted instinctively, shouting, "Expelliarmus!" The force of the spell sent Quirrell sprawling backward, but the professor was quick to recover. With a flick of his own wand, he sent a burst of fire hurtling toward Harry. The boy dove to the side, the heat singeing his robes. The battle escalated, spells flying as the room erupted into chaos. Harry's movements were fueled by adrenaline and the stone's power, his magic more potent than ever before. But Quirrell was relentless, his attacks growing more vicious with each passing moment. Then, in a moment of desperation, Harry pressed the stone against his chest, willing its energy to protect him. A blinding light filled the room and Quirrell screamed, his body writhing as though in agony. When the light faded, the professor lay motionless on the floor, his wand clattering to the ground. Harry stood trembling, the stone still clutched in his hand. The voice returned, softer now, almost soothing. "You have done well, Harry, but this is only the beginning. Keep the stone. Its power is yours to command." As the adrenaline ebbed, Harry felt a wave of exhaustion crash over him. He stumbled out of the room, the stone hidden in his pocket. The castle was silent as he made his way back to the Slytherin common room, the events of the night replaying in his mind. He had faced danger and emerged victorious, but at what cost? The whispers had brought him this far, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they had more to say. And deep down, he wasn't sure if he was ready to listen. The days following Harry's encounter with Professor Quirrell were a blur. He carried the Philosopher's Stone with him everywhere, its weight a constant reminder of the power he had claimed and the choices he had made. The whispers had grown quieter but more persistent, a steady pulse at the back of his mind that never truly left him. They urged him to act, to explore, to embrace the destiny they promised. Harry's behavior did not go unnoticed. Draco Malfoy watched him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, while Snape's piercing gaze lingered on him more often than not. Even Hermione Granger seemed to sense something was amiss. She approached him one evening in the library, her brow furrowed in concern. "Harry," she began hesitantly, "I've been reading about the Philosopher's Stone. If you have it, you need to tell someone. It's too dangerous." Harry's hand instinctively went to his pocket where the stone lay hidden. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said quickly, avoiding her eyes. Hermione's frown deepened. "Don't lie to me. I've seen you, Harry. You're different. You're changing." Harry's temper flared, fueled by the whispers that insisted she didn't understand, that she was an obstacle. "Maybe you should stay out of my business," he snapped, standing abruptly. "You don't know anything about me." Hermione recoiled, hurt flashing in her eyes, but she said nothing as Harry stormed away. That night, Harry found himself drawn back to the third-floor corridor. The room where he had claimed the stone was silent and empty now, but the memories lingered. He stood before the mirror again, its surface dull and unresponsive. Frustration bubbled within him. "Show me," he demanded, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Show me what I'm supposed to do." The whispers responded stronger than ever. "The stone is only the beginning. There is more power to be found, more secrets to uncover. But you must be willing to take the next step." Harry's scar burned as the whispers painted vivid images in his mind, dark corridors filled with ancient relics, spells that could bend the very fabric of reality, and a throne from which he could rule not just Hogwarts, but the entire wizarding world. The visions were intoxicating. For the first time, Harry felt as though he had control over his destiny, as though he were more than just the boy who lived. He was Harry Potter, a force to be reckoned with. But doubts crept in as well. He remembered the look in Hermione's eyes, the way Ron avoided him, and the careful neutrality with which Hagrid now spoke to him. Were they afraid of him? Did they think he was becoming something dark? The idea should have angered him, but instead it gnawed at his resolve. As the days turned into weeks, Harry's isolation grew. Draco's attempts to pry into his secrets became more aggressive, and even Snape's attitude shifted from quiet observation to open suspicion. During a particularly tense potions class, Snape's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Potter," he said sharply, A word. Harry stayed behind as the rest of the class filed out, his hand instinctively brushing against his pocket. Snape's dark eyes bore into him. "You've been acting differently," Snape said, his tone dangerously low. "And I don't believe for a second that it's merely the burden of fame. What are you hiding?" Harry met his gaze defiantly. "Nothing." Snape's lip curled. "Don't lie to me, Potter. Whatever you think you've found, whatever power you believe you've gained, it will destroy you. Mark my words." Harry's hand tightened around the stone in his pocket. The whispers surged, urging him to lash out, to silence Snape once and for all. But he hesitated, the weight of the professor's warning pressing down on him. That evening, Harry returned to the Slytherin common room to find Draco waiting for him. The blonde's expression was unreadable as he gestured for Harry to sit. "What is it, Malfoy?" Harry asked warily. Draco leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you have it, the stone, and I know what it can do." Harry stiffened. "You don't know anything," Draco smirked. "Don't I? My father's told me stories about it, about the power it holds. You think you can handle that kind of power, Potter? You're just a kid." Harry's temper flared again. "Stay out of my way, Malfoy. This has nothing to do with you." Draco's smirk faded, replaced by a rare seriousness. "Maybe not. But don't think for a second that you can keep it hidden forever. People are watching, Potter, and sooner or later, someone will come for it." As Draco walked away, Harry felt the weight of his words settle over him like a heavy cloak. He had the stone, and with it unimaginable power. But he also had enemies, seen and unseen, who would stop at nothing to take it from him. That night, Harry stood at the edge of the Black Lake, the moonlight reflecting off its surface like shards of silver. He held the stone in his hand, its glow faint but steady. The whispers were silent now, as though waiting for him to make a decision. For a long time he simply stared at the stone, its warmth seeping into his skin. He thought about what it had cost him already. His friendships, his peace of mind, his very sense of self. And yet, he couldn't bring himself to let it go. With a heavy sigh, Harry slipped the stone back into his pocket and turned away from the lake. The whispers resumed, soft and insistent, guiding him back toward the castle and the uncertain future that awaited him. Whatever lay ahead, Harry knew one thing for certain. The stone had chosen him, and there was no turning back now.